Hello everyone, welcome to a new session in biochemistry. This presentation brings to you the detailed account of the metabolic process glycolysis. The glycolysis, the term comes from two Greek terms, the Greek root words, which means sugar or splitting. Okay, sugar and splitting, which means glycolysis, in nutshell, it is the breakdown or the splitting or the dissolution of the sugar molecule. It could be glucose, mainly it is glucose. Okay, so that is glycolysis. So it can be defined as a sequence of reactions that metabolizes one molecule of glucose to produce two molecules of pyruvate along with production of ATP. So the glucose molecule, a single glucose molecule, it is broken down to produce two molecules of pyruvic acid, and along with that energy it is produced in the form of ATP molecules. Okay, what are the significant features of what you call glycolysis? You can say that glycolysis it occurs in all the cells of the body, and enzymes required for the glycolytic pathway, it is present in the cytoplasm of all the cells. Okay, and it is considered to be the sole source of what you call energy in many of the mammalian tissues and cell types. For example, glycolysis, it is a major pathway for the synthesis of energy for the ATP synthesis in tissues which lack mitochondria. For example, erythrocytes, then what you call cornea, lens, etc. And other than that, it is also the source of energy in many tissues like renal medulla, of that of brain, sperm, etc. So glycolysis is very essential for brain, which is dependent upon glucose for energy. And the as already mentioned, the glucose is the sole source of energy in the brain, and it depends upon glycolysis for the complete energy purpose. And along with that, many anaerobic microorganisms, they are entirely dependent on glucose, because glycolysis is an anaerobic process. It doesn't require oxygen, so it can take place in the absence or in the presence of oxygen. uh, in the presence of oxygen, that is in aerobic condition, what happens is the glucose, it breaks down to pyruvate, and this pyruvate later it can get oxidized to carbon dioxide and water. But in the absence of oxygen, the glucose, it will break down to pyruvate, which will enter the anaerobic pathway and result in the production of lactate under anaerobic condition. Okay, so whichever be the way, we can see that it occurs in the absence as well as in the presence of oxygen. Okay, so that is more important thing, because there are plenty of organisms which completely depend on the glycolytic pathway for their energy needs. Okay, it is because glycolysis can very well get completed in the absence of oxygen. Now we can see that the glycolytic pathway, it was elucidated, or the complete pathway of glycolysis was elucidated by 1940, and Emden and Mayeroff, they were two biochemists who had contributed uh, to the knowledge of glycolysis, especially the enzymatic breakdown at various stages of glycolysis were studied and elucidated by Emden and Mayeroff. And in honor of these two biochemists, the glycolysis is also known as Emden-Mayeroff pathway. Okay, so this is about the glycolysis, the interaction. Okay, that is glycolysis. It involves a sequence of reactions that will convert or break down glucose into a single molecule of glucose into two molecules of pyruvic acid along with the production of ATP. Okay, and there are glycolysis is unique because it can happen in both presence or absence of oxygen. In the presence of oxygen, the glucose molecule, it will be broken down into two molecules of pyruvic acid, and in the absence of oxygen, this pyruvic acid, it can get converted into lactic acid. Okay, in the what you call, or even what you call alcoholic fermentation is there in yeast and all. So in the presence of oxygen, what happens? The pyruvate, it is getting oxidized to form carbon dioxide and water. right? So it can happen in both situations. That so many cells which are anaerobically functioning, they do depend on glycolysis for their energy need. Secondly, we can see that there are many cells which lack mitochondria. They may be aerobic, but they lack mitochondria, so they have to depend upon glycolysis for their complete source of energy. Okay, so that is about the glycolysis. Now regarding the steps involved. Glycolysis, the whole complete sequence of reactions, it can be divided into two phases, that is preparatory phase or the priming phase we call, and the payoff phase. Okay, the first phase is a preparatory phase, and the first set of phases, and the preparatory phase or the first phase of glycolysis, it is referred as priming phase, or it is known as energizing phase. Okay, priming phase in the sense the phase where the energy is being utilized. Okay, energy is being utilized in the form of ATP, right? And during this particular phase, we can see that the glucose, it gets phosphorylated, uh, and then it splits into two the triose phosphate molecules. Okay, so it is actually glucose converted into glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate, and this process it gets included under preparatory phase. And the glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate is a 3 carbon containing compound, or 3 carbon containing sugar, while glucose is a 6 carbon containing sugar. So a 6 carbon sugar is converted into 3 carbon phosphorylated sugar. Okay, this is what happens in the preparatory phase. And here you can see a non-phosphorylated sugar is getting converted into a phosphorylated sugar. Obviously, there is a requirement of ATP. Okay, so that is where the ATP is getting utilized and energy is like used. Okay, so it is actually glucose is getting activated, or it is getting primed, we call, or it is getting prepared for the glycolytic process. Okay, the second phase, actually it is known as the payoff phase, or we call it as energy, what do you call, um, is actually ATP is produced during this phase. Okay, it is energy conserving phase, okay, or conservation phase. Okay, so here what happens is the free energy which is trapped in the substrate molecules, it is the free energy, it is getting trapped in the substrate molecules, and this is getting conserved in the form of ATP. Okay, here the glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate, it is getting converted into the pyruvic acid. Okay, ultimately passing through various steps, pyruvic acid is produced, and during the this particular phase, NADH and ATP molecules are produced, which is actually energy conserving molecules. Okay, so glycolysis, it is the whole set of reactions, it can be differentiated into two phases: preparatory phase and payoff phase. Preparatory phase is otherwise known as priming phase or energy spending phase. Okay, it is actually energy requiring phase. Here what happens is the glucose molecule is getting prepared or activated to undergo the glycolytic pathway. Okay, and in the preparatory phase, glucose, which is a 6 carbon sugar, is getting converted into phosphorylated 3 carbon sugar, which is the glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate. Okay, during the payoff phase, this phosphorylated 3 carbon sugar is getting converted into pyruvic acid through various steps, and during these phase we can see that like energy molecules, ATP, NADH, etc., they are being produced. Okay, so it is an energy conserving phase, or we can say during this phase energy is generated. Okay, so preparatory phase or priming phase, energy utilization phase or energizing phase, while the payoff phase, that is the energy generation phase. Okay, so this is about the um, uh, two major phases of glycolysis. We can see the phase wise glycolytic, what all are the reactions going on. Okay,